that the Optavia program has blessed your life. It could be a win you had this week, connections you've made, non-scale or scale victories. Or if you're new here, just put new. I love their learning how to eat well, learning how to move. Okay, increased awareness and consciousness. So great to have you guys here. Well, we, most of us are pretty familiar with the 4 components of our program, but let's do a quick review. And I'm actually going to talk a little more about the program as we get going. But there are 4 components to our program, right? The coach. So the coach, that'll be whoever invited you here today. The Habits of Health transformational system, we're going to talk a little bit about that. Our healthy community, which you're a part of right now, and then our scientifically designed fuelings, which are amazing. And we're going to talk all about those things. So I'm excited tonight to share on a topic that I have been working on in my own health journey called it's basically, are you afraid of being healthy? So I'm Jennifer Oxford. I'm a certified independent Optavia coach, and I'm also a clinical mental health counselor. So one of the things I love about the Optavia program is that it resonates with the things that I know to be true with mental health and those kinds of things in that arena. And so we're going to blend a little bit here with those two. So I want to ask you guys this idea, and let's just check in. Who wants to be healthy? Right? Just put a 1 in the chat if you're saying, I would like to be healthy in some way. It could be mind, it could be a healthy body, it could be healthy finances, healthy relationships, but this concept that people want to be healthy. Tonight, I'm going to talk a little bit about the physical aspect of that, but I want you to know that this can really benefit you in all the different areas of health as you come to understand this principle. But when I did this, I wanted to go off something Dr. Anderson had taught, and I'll tell you a little bit why. And one of the things he first says as he introduces this program on the website is he says there are over 30,000 diets on the market, and people spend millions on gyms, right? Maybe you've been there. You can just blink if you've ever done that. And still, we fail to achieve our health goals 85% of the time. And guys, I have been there. I have been there and I don't like it. So I want to talk a little bit about what this looks like in my own experience, and then relate it a little bit to kind of what goes on. So you'll see here on the screen, so what really works, right? We're going to talk about how Dr. Anderson talks about what really works. The first is you have to bring your own desire. So that first picture is me and my husband. I think that was our first official vacation ever on a boat somewhere in San Diego. We really liked anything where they did all the moving for us. So boats were really cool. And then we went, not on purpose, but basically because we were desperate, we went in search of our health program. And my husband actually found this program first. And he found it through a coach that he had appreciated, was making progress, and he reached out. And he tied into Dr. Anderson's theory and the method, and saying he wanted predictable results. Do you guys want to see what happened? All right. So let me show you what happened. Matt and I together lost over 550 pounds. So when we talk about bringing the desire, the correct theory, and the system together, I realized very quickly that this worked, right? Here's the thing. It's not that we don't always get to our results, but keeping them is a whole different experience. And so I want to talk a little bit about what that journey looks like, both when you're starting out on plan, but also as you're working on lifelong health. Okay, so just remember, this is something I've been spending a lot of time figuring out for myself. Okay, so the first question I want to ask you is, what are you afraid of when it comes to your health? If you would like to, you're more than welcome to put it in the chat. If you don't have to be on program, but if there's anything you're like, one of the things I'm afraid of, and this could be something I'm going to lose out on, right? Some of us are thinking about 4th of July this next week. Does anyone ever feel like, oh, I really, really want those ribs with barbecue sauce? Gaining the weight back? Yep, that's absolutely one. Sometimes we're afraid that the reward won't meet the cost can be a part of it. Oh, I like that one. What other people will think of me? So that social response, positive and negative. I've actually had people hide this from other people. That fear that it's just not going to work. And that was definitely my fear. So here's the thing though, when I had the predictable results, I still was afraid. And I want to talk a little bit about what that looks like, right? So we got a little cat here. So I want to go with the definition of fear for a minute, okay? And I took this definition from Brene Brown's book, Atlas of the Heart. And it says fear is a negative, short-lasting, high alert emotion in response to a perceived threat. Okay, so one of the things I didn't realize for a long time is I couldn't recognize fear. And I just want you to notice fear is something that even as a therapist, I talk to people all the time about their fear and they say, I'm not really afraid of that. They say it all the time. That's not, Jen, I'm not afraid of that. That's not scary. Why are you calling it fear? And so I really want to talk about fear and this idea of what we do with it. Okay, so let's talk about what fear is. Okay, so here's some way to identify whether you're in fear. Say that there isn't a bear and you're still like, I don't think I'm in fear. I don't know, I can't tell. This is something that I talked through my clients with. So there's a couple things. One, we talked about it, how it was a very fast thing. So when fear happens, there's no time to prepare. You have to act right then, right? It's what we call a rapid fire emotion. In fact, sometimes you react before you even register what's going on. And I just want to take a minute and see if anyone's ever felt that with their health journey. Has anyone ever said no to something that was healthy before they ever thought of it? Because they thought maybe it was too hard or uncomfortable, right? I want you to notice the things that you might have just responded to without even thinking. That's a fear thing. We're going to talk about that. The one thing I want you to know is this does not have to be rational. If you're like, nobody else will understand why I'm afraid, that's okay. That's not what it's about. But fear is about either physical or psychological danger. Now, most people who, well, there is a teen program, but most people who come into this program as an adult, by the time you've reached adulthood, you've had some fear experiences. That's just part of the way it goes, right? And so when we have that, there's psychological things that our brain has started to store and say, that's not safe. And if you're really honest with yourself, and you can put it in the chat if you want to, but you don't have to, but I want you to get really honest about what you're afraid of psychologically about health. Can I tell you guys something that I was really afraid of? And I only can say this now because it's something I've been able to work through. I was really afraid that I wouldn't know who my real friends are. I grew up overweight. I was overweight my whole life. I saw a lot of people actually have really inauthentic relationships who were skinny. People didn't treat them well. So that was one of my fears. It's kind of hard, right? So I was afraid of that. I was really afraid of failing, really afraid, because if I tried to lose weight and didn't, then everyone would know that I wasn't like 100% happy with my health, right? I was also really afraid of the cost. I had actually spent some money on weight loss surgery at one point, and that didn't pay off. So I had some fears about that. And I was actually really afraid of the community. I was really afraid I was going to come in the community and it was going to be weird and I was never going to be fit in, and that only people who looked like they went to, the gym every week was here. And so I was afraid of a lot of those things. And so I want you to notice that fears don't have to be just a physical thing. And so even if it's just in your personal kind of notes, I think whether you do it now or later, I want you to take time to really ask yourself what your fears around your health are. Don't judge it. That's my best advice. That's therapist Jen. Don't judge your fears. Just listen to them for a minute. The next thing I want you to know is fear makes you stupid. Now, I don't say stupid a lot, so know that but it literally drops your IQ. How many of know that? How many of you have heard that before, that the fear will drop your IQ? Now, average IQ, and I'm not saying IQ is everything, so please don't go to that place. Let's just go in this place with fear and understanding. What happens though, is that average IQ for an adult, functional adult, low end, 80 IQ, high end, 120, I think some people are up as high as 60. So you don't have to reveal your IQ, but just so you know, there's not a huge span. There's only 40 points for like the really smart people. And then they start acting like the really stupid people. But for those of us who are average intelligence, we lose 40 IQ points and we are basically a toddler, right? I put the dog up here because a lot of times we call this Labrador brain, but we don't actually give ourselves permission to say, when I am afraid, I am stupid. And not mean stupid, but just I'm not thinking rationally. Guys, this blew my mind when I realized that. We're going to talk about why, because as a rational adult, I can follow this plan and I don't struggle. But when I'm in fear, I struggle. And I want you to notice that. Okay, and so the last part is it tells us what to do. It does not listen to our desires. It doesn't check your vision board. It doesn't do any of those things. It goes to one of four things. It goes to fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, which is when we try and make people feel better about what we're doing so that they'll be safer to us. So maybe we eat some food in front of other people so that they don't reject us. Just saying, in case you've ever wondered what that was. But we are all about protection at that point, and we are not thinking about our goals. So I want you to notice, right, that this is something that you don't control, but you can start to really pay attention to it. So as we talk about fear, I want to give you another great quote from my friend Brene, right? Because we got to check again on what we're really afraid of, because I'm going to give you a skill. Actually, Dr. Anderson gave us a skill, but I really want you to understand how important it is as I set this up. So the truth about fear is that she does all this qualitative research and gets information from people. She shouldn't say, here's what it is. She says, you tell me about fear. And one of the items that was on every single person's list was social rejection. And I thought, how powerful is that? Because one of the things we really feel a lot is that owning our desire to be healthy or not feeling healthy or whatever actually affects how we feel about how we interact with the world and sometimes our loved one. I just want you to take a minute and put a heart in the chat if you, or just an H, if you have ever really worried about social rejection and that has kept you in fear about dealing with your health, and be honest. But I want you to know we can never forget that we experience social pain, right? And physical pain in the same part of our brain. It does not actually matter. It's the same part and it drives fear. So if you feel social rejection, you're going to feel pain and your brain is going to respond like somebody just bit you, right? So just pay attention for a minute. Okay, I'm going to get to the skill, I promise, but I want to make sure you guys really get clear on this. Is this helping? So just pay attention. So this one thing I want you to pay attention to is I want to get really clear about what I learned about fear, because fear is what keeps me down. It's the thing that keeps me from reaching my goals sometimes. So scarcity is a type of fear. So Michael Kruse, he actually read one of Brené's books and he went and did a deep dive on scarcity. Scarcity, I want you to read this for a minute with me. Scarcity mindset and fear are interwoven, meaning they do not disconnect. And I believe, he says, that they are mutually reinforcing, right? So if you think about them scaring each other, they constantly scare each other. Fear scares scarcity, scarcity scares fear, and they just are constantly afraid. It's like a terrible, I don't know, it's a really bad night where nobody's feeling scared. It's probably a movie I don't watch because I don't like those kind of movies. But it might be the fear of loss. Think about this. I'm going to lose out on eating something. I'm going to lose out on an identity I have. I'm going to lose out on an experience with my family. I'm going to lose out on those kinds of things. Limited attainment. I can't have what I want, right? My favorite question to get asked is, Jen, can I have this on plan? The answer is yes, you can have whatever you want, because I don't want you to be in scarcity. You get to choose whether you're going to have it and you get the results. Can you have everything you want with no consequences? No, that's fantasy. That's a whole nother topic, you guys. Okay. But then sustainability, can I maintain this? We talked about that at the beginning. Can I maintain my health? Achievement itself and not knowing what's coming next. This develops the sense of fear and scarcity. So I just want you guys to pay attention to that. Okay, so Dr. Anderson is amazing. I didn't know that. Before I went to my first convention, everyone talked about Dr. Anderson, and I was like, I don't know who that is. I don't really care. These feelings are working, whatever. But I want you to know something. He knew he couldn't sit with every one of us every day of our lives. He knew that we would have to figure this out. And so he gave us this tool, and it is an amazing tool. It's, you guys, it's more powerful than we realize. Okay, but it's called Stop, Challenge, Choose. I promise you, reach out to your coach. They can give you more information. It says, but this is what he says. Listen to how powerful and smart he was about fear. This helps you to instantaneously take back control. In essence, you are breaking the cue-driven response by becoming aware of unhealthy triggers, right? This is all in that educational system you get. And you can use this anytime you are feeling, listen to the words, stressed, perceive a threat, or sense any other negative feeling. You guys, Dr. Anderson knows what he's talking about. Okay, so we're going to go over real quick. It's not hard. I wanted to make sure you were really aware of fear, because once you're aware of it, what you got to do, really easy. The first one, you got my little scaredy cats here, you guys. Okay, it says stop. We're going to refocus on the exact moment instead of automatically reacting. I'm going to give you a couple tips. I'm going to go through it a little bit fast, okay? But here's some tips. Ways to stop. You're going to breathe, okay? Jen, I breathe all the time. Great. You're going to do 3 types of breathing to get out of fear. You're going to breathe out versus in, okay? This is my favorite thing. My mom and I joke about it all the time. You go like this, okay? It will move you out of fear. Breathe out versus in, okay? Nose versus mouth. So I looked this up to see if this was true, because I was like, I've heard this, but I want to make sure. So that what it does is nose actually slows the airflow and calms you down and gets you to think. So this is true. I know as a therapist, we're always telling you to breathe, but it's true. Okay. And then count your breath. This distraction refocuses your thoughts. So instead of thinking about whatever you're craving, you can do that. Okay. The second one, challenge. Okay, I love the idea of, is it a lion or is it a kitty cat? Instead of responding with the impulse-driven bad habit, ask yourself, why am I feeling this way? So I want to give you 3 questions. The first one is always, am I in physical danger? And I ask this question first because most of the time when it's a psychological danger, knowing I'm not in physical danger will calm you down. The second one is, what emotion are you feeling? Guys, your coach can tell you a lot more about this, but that's a really important question, because instead of dealing with something you can't control, you can deal with something you control. And then what do I need to feel safe, right? The answer, this is just from years of working on my own health, is not a cookie. The cookie doesn't make you feel safe. I've tried it. Like, if you guys need to know, I'm just saying, if you need to try it once, that's fine. But if you need to try it 100 times, I tried it 100 times, it didn't work, guys. The last one is choose. Okay, and your coach is going to talk to you about this a little bit. Actually, maybe I'm a little bit ahead of time, so I'll take some questions. If you have a question about fear, start putting it in the chat and I'll scroll up on it. I think I was reading the clock wrong. So the last one is choose. So what response, this is when you get back your brain. All your IQ points are back. Like, we did the breathing, we did the questioning. We're going to get back our IQ points. Okay, now we're looking at our vision board again. Okay, this is where you're supposed to be. Maybe you've called your coach, or you've checked in on Facebook and you've seen some positive, support. And you can say, okay, I can do this. What response in that moment supports your more important long-term desires? Okay, so I want to stop sharing for a minute and just take a minute and I think I stopped sharing. Give you guys a minute to really let me know what some of your questions are. I'm so glad I can make you laugh. Yes, the cookie has been tried. I actually tried all the cookies just in case you were worried that one of the flavors didn't work. They all don't work, okay? It's not going to fix you. Otherwise, people would be better. Nobody would be in fear, okay? I really like this idea of seeing yourself as fearful versus not. I do want to encourage you guys to put something in the chat, but let me share a little bit of my journey as we're talking about this. So I lost the weight. I lost 180 pounds. It was so easy, you guys. It was ridiculously easy for me. I think I was in shock or something, some other, but then I got really worried about maintaining it. And I got really stressed. This pandemic thing happened. I had some crises in my personal life, and I started to gain weight back. It's because I was trying the cookies. I'm just telling you, being honest, it was not the program, it was the cookies. Okay. And I started getting really interested about, okay, why am I doing this? Like, Dr. Anderson talks about the stop, challenge, choose, and he says, okay, this is what I want you to do. I want to use the stop, challenge, choose. And here's the thing. I realized that I was acting before I was thinking. We go back to right fear. Fear sometimes responds before you can think and recognize it was fear. And I experienced that, right? I just want to know, anyone else experience that where they accidentally ate something or did something and they just, nobody else, right? Because I've totally been there. I act first. Think about it. Have you done that? Did you say no before you said yes? Did you say yes before you said no? But I went through that, and you guys, I went through it for months, and I would do that. And finally I realized, okay, I got to get really clear on what I'm doing, because this is not working. Things aren't going the way I want them to go. And the program works, predictable results, right? So I was like, okay, what's going on? Well, obviously I had to look up how much a crumble cookie was, how many calories. I had to get really honest with myself, you guys. I'm just saying, if you really want to get a good grounding moment, look up how many calories are in those cookies. And I had to get really honest that every time I made that decision, is that what I wanted? But you guys, sometimes I still said yes. I'll be really honest. I still said yes sometimes. And I thought, gosh, isn't that interesting? I'm not ready for that level of honesty. I love it, Chantel. Isn't it interesting that even though I knew it was going to be bad for me, I would still do it, right? Just blink if you've ever done something you knew was going to be bad for you. Okay. So I realized that, and I said, okay, I'm going to get what's going on just before I eat the cookie. Like this is how I work with my clients, you guys. When they say, I did this crazy thing, I said, okay, tell me what the trigger was. So I started going through and saying, what's going on just before I'm eating this cookie? You guys, I'll be really honest. It was always on the way to work or from work. And at the time, I had an even more stressful job. I worked with teens. So if any of you have had teens, I have a lot of empathy. I had 16 at once at this point in my life. So just know, breathe. Okay, I get you. Okay, but 16 teenagers, and I was in fear, right? And so that's what led to it. And so I did this experience where I just said, okay, I don't want to do things out of fear. I don't want to do it anymore. And so I gave myself permission to go into this place and ask myself, what is it you really want? And if you're in fear, don't eat a cookie. Do something else, but don't eat a cookie. So what I did, you guys, is I started working on Stop, Challenge, Choose. Okay. And the first thing I did was I said, okay, what can I do in the car? Because the car is a dangerous place because you drive from one place to another. And I'm in Utah County currently, and there are no less than 57 cookie shops between my house and work. I don't know how many there are by your work, but I just feel you, okay? And if you don't live in Utah, you may not understand this, but basically it's the idea of Starbucks, but in an idea of cookie shops, okay? So I said, what can I do? And so I started calling. I would call someone as soon as I get in the car. I called my mom or my sister, and sometimes my husband, but he was also working. So I'd call my mom or my sister and I'd talk to them, and I would distract myself, right? Distract myself long enough to get home. And if I got home, I wasn't going to go out and get another cookie most of the time. I'm not saying never, but most of the time I would do it. And so I went through this Stop, Challenge, Choose. And it's, you guys, it got a lot better where I could be like, oh, that's fear. You're actually feeling a big emotion right now. And instead of doing something about it, you can start to breathe and move forward. I went through about, gosh, guys, it was almost a year of gaining weight. I had never yo-yoed before because I just was a gainer or maintainer. So I had never yo-yoed. So I went through a year of yo-yoing. I think I lost the same 20 pounds. I don't know. The program works, so I lost it probably 20 times. And I would say, okay, but then after a couple of days, I would find this. So learning about Stop, Challenge, Choose on the emotional level was super powerful for me. And what I learned is that once I could identify fear, I could work with it, and it became less powerful in my life. And now you can check with Matt if you need to check in my accuracy, but I can actually, even if I see other people getting a cookie, I can avoid it. That's not my safety. My safety comes in this idea that I actually, and I got this from one of the coaches I talked to, that I deserve to be healthy. And that's where safety comes from. It doesn't come from the cookie. It comes from this idea that I deserve to be healthy, and I'm valuable enough, and I'm enough that it's worth being a little bit uncomfortable. So I really hope that was helpful for you guys. I'm done a little bit early, so I apologize. And I didn't see, maybe I talked too much. I didn't see any other questions in the chat, but if you do have them, I just want to say a couple things that were ready that were noticed was the idea of Blasted. That's a really good tool. Blasted stands for bored, lonely, angry, stressed, tired. Oh, something. Now I can't remember the ED. Maybe you'll have to post it. It's, yeah, emotional and discouraged. Maybe discouraged feels like real for me, but I love the other ideas of how do we distract ourselves. But I want you to know that it wasn't until I actually depressed or discouraged that I actually started processing the fear that the pattern stopped. And I really did have to do the work around fear. And I really appreciate everyone. So we're gonna stop recording. I hope you guys all got something out of this, and stay on, because we're gonna switch over to our two breakout sessions, right? Many of you love the program, and kind of say, okay, what can I do to stay more likely? This is so important to realize that the whole time I was doing this, I was coaching. And so it was so important to me. So 500% more likely to reach and maintain a healthy weight. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. So if you're scared of it, stay. We take scaredy cats in any of them. Okay. But I really want to encourage you to come over. And then for those of you who are newer coaches, we're going to do a coach quick start class. So otherwise, we're going to see you next week. Enjoy your 4th of July. And we'll see you next week. So if you are a new coach, to make sure you go into the new coach quick start, I want you to make sure you put a 1 in the chat, and that will make sure you get assigned to that room. Okay, thanks everybody. Have a wonderful night.
Thank you, Jen. All right, just making sure I made the breakout room. Have you seen a notification for anyone that's